be guests, so...
Okay.
Go.
Move! Shit.
Since the first bombs fell in Ukraine and Russia started their invasion, Ukrainian media outlets have been forced to step into an unbearable, incredibly important new role. From the front lines of war and from underground bomb shelters, Ukrainian journalists have become war reporters in their own country.
You could see that here is the hole of the rocket that hit in this area.
Having to inform citizens of where it's safe to walk and where help is offered. Critically examining every piece of information, calling out every shred of propaganda, and documenting attacks on civilians, collecting evidence of war crimes. And at the same time, they've had to try to keep themselves safe. Sadly, war rhetoric spreads and autocratic leaders learn from each other. Only a few days after the war in Ukraine began, the Taliban used the lack of international attention to carry out attacks on media outlets and media organizations who are trying to ensure access to reliable information in the face of a humanitarian crisis in the country. At least 60% of all Afghan media outlets have been closed since the fall of Kabul last year. And today, Afghan journalists risk being beaten up or jailed simply for doing their job. Across the world, we see authoritarian regimes follow the same vicious playbook. They shut down the internet, leaving populations in darkness. They censor and silence their critics. They restrict and attack journalists, most often female journalists. They wait until we forget. When war fatigue sets in, when the international attention span runs out, when international correspondents are told to return home, when you turn off the news, that's when the international community loses interest. In countries like Palestine, Myanmar, Yemen, and Syria, populations have seen how war fatigue allows occupiers, regimes, and dictators to take the next step in their repressive playbook. It's human nature to stop looking, to protect yourselves from the constant flow of bad news. But for local journalists, looking away is simply not an option. Since 2016, more than 400 journalists have been killed on the job. Most of them local journalists killed in their own country. The reason why journalism continues to be such a dangerous profession is because journalists have the means to lay out the facts and keep people informed and hold those in power to account. An informed citizen is an antidote to the poisonous lies of any dictator. So in sharing reliable information, independent media certainly are part of the cure. But journalists should never be alone on this mission. Even when you feel the war fatigue setting in, don't turn off the news. Keep paying attention. Keep sharing the work of the journalists who risk their lives to get the story out.